joining us for Surge. The scriptures say here in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, it says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." And this is the Apostle Peter writing to the scattered elect. And so all of you are here today because you're part of that crowd that God calls a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, who are now his representatives to the nations to draw people to him until he comes and returns. So I just want to say thank you for being here. If you look around, we have about 80 people here from 5 different churches. So just to help you get to know one another, we have represented here tonight Sola Church. That's the church that I'm from. We're in South Denver, kind of spread out across Centennial and Littleton. We also have the Embassy here in the, 5 Points sort of area? Yep. Northeast Denver. Okay. We have L2, who has been so gracious in letting us use the facility, which is awesome. Russ McKendry and many of you are from L2, so thank you for letting us invade your space here. We have Wellspring in Aurora, and then we also have Emmaus in the Arts District of Denver. So thank you all for being here, and we're going to start off with a video that we're going to let you watch. It just kind of introduces us to Surge.
Surge's approach to teaching is so unique because the approach is so focused on this kind of all of life being for Christ, that kind of all of life quality.
In the beginning, when you realize that you're part of this gospel story, that you're the continuation of what God has already set in motion, that changes the way you think about your life. It changes the way you interact with people.
God created us to subdue creation. He created us to reflect him in that. Like, that just gets missed so much of the time until you fully understand, like, the gospel seeps through to more than just, Sunday mornings and my get out of hell free card, that actually seeps into every area of life.
Surge has influenced the way that I live my life dramatically. When I go to work, I just don't see people the same anymore. I actually go there looking for opportunities to share the gospel.
God has created me to glorify him in the way that I laugh with my kids, in the way that I run my house, in every aspect of my life. And so converting the Bible from a list of random things that are good and things that I should do to a story that I could be a part of made a huge difference in how I thought about every aspect of my life and what I was doing.
I know that I'm in position to lead my family, and I'm called to lead them towards God, to lead them to live a life to serve.
So here I am in a public high school. I can't say, hey, you are part of God's story. But I can say you're part of a story that's bigger than you know. Kids want to belong, and they want to feel a part of a family. And so when they're able to start telling their stories, they get in touch with those places in their heart that maybe I can't say, yeah, that's God, but I can pray.
For me, it's one thing to hear sort of theology and solid Bible teaching on Sunday from the pulpit. It's incredibly critical, but then to be able to have an opportunity to sort of apply that gospel thinking to everyday life, and having a group of guys that can help you sort of work out how that permeates vocation, family, that was the big deal for me.
It seemed like I was always hiding something, and now that I live in community, we tend to learn each other's flaws, but we're there to lift each other up and just consistently point to the cross and to the gospel.
It's cool to know that there are brothers there that dedicated their lives to the cause of Christ, that dedicated their lives to the mission of God, dedicated their lives to knowing more about Jesus.
It's fantastic that what Surge has done is kind of filled that often really big gap that exists between what you do Monday through Friday in your work life and the kind of Sunday church life. And it's really become this way of kind of stretching those two together and creating a way to make it known that that work life is extremely important and valued. And there's a tremendous amount of things you are learning in Surge that can be directly applied to that work life and kind of make your whole, if you will, life for Christ, that kind of all of life quality, really start to have, actual handles and feet to it.
Surge is a commitment. Surge gives accountability, it gives friendship, it gives relationship, and at the same time helps us become the men and women that God wants us to be for life. Not for just right now, but for life. So 1 year for the rest of your life seems like a really good deal.
I was intimidated because it is a lot of reading. I will not lie. It is every bit of amount of reading that you think it's going to be. But it was amazing. It was amazing. It was a transformative experience for me. I didn't grow up in the church. I really, throughout my whole life, have felt kind of a lack in my biblical understanding the gospel, understanding of God's plan for me. So I was really intimidated about sharing the gospel with anybody, intimidated about being a leader in any capacity, in whatever that might look like in my life or through the church. And so Surge gave me the ability to not only understand more about what God's plan is for all of us, including myself, but it gave me a deeper biblical knowledge that I was really lacking and really striving for and really yearning for, so that I now feel a lot more comfortable, talking to people about my faith, about what God does through the gospel, what His plan is for the world, and so I can reach out to people in a lot stronger way, and it's also empowered me to really think differently about how I interact with the world and what my priorities are. Before I was nervous about really living out my faith. And I think this has really helped me reach out to my community, really empower the community that we have in our church and the community that we're trying to reach out to with our church. It gave me a much better sense for how important that is and how impactful we can all be in our own individual ways in that, and how we can be a part of what God's doing. It's not just about what I know about God, but it's about how I can see God working in the bigger world and how I can be a part of how God's working in that bigger context. And so through the process of Surge, learning the bigger paradigm of the Bible, and then, internalizing it into the, some quarters are more internal, and then you get big again and get small again. That was really helpful to me, not only in my own personal growth, but in also understanding God's design for the Big C church that we all are, and how what my part might look like in that, and not thinking so small and so limited in a way that I was before, of my own limited faith, my own limited actions, but realizing that each individual little step can become so much bigger and has so much more of an impact than I previously thought. So I think you guys are on tap for an amazing ride. It's going to be, 8 or 9 months of lots of homework. You're going to feel like you're in college again. That was a little traumatizing for me. I never wanted to see another college, textbook or anything in my life. But honestly, I'm back here again because it was such an amazing experience, and I hope to be back for future years. And just, it's exciting to see how everybody grows through this process and how you get to know each other, get to know your church more. It's an amazing transformative experience, and I'm really grateful that you guys are all here, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out in everybody's lives.
Hey everybody, my name is Chris Gonzalez, and I'm live in Tempe, Arizona, down in the Phoenix Valley. and one of the co-directors or co-founders of Surge down in Phoenix. And so we did it about 7 years ago. Here's the story real quick. There were 4 of us who were each planning different churches in the southeast valley of Phoenix. And we all came together, and we kept hearing people say, like wise people that had planted churches before and seen them do good and seen them fail. And they said, you've got to develop leaders. Don't just plant a service. So don't just plant a show on Sunday, a service for people to come to on Sunday, but do things to develop leaders within your church to be able to serve in the city. And so we said, okay, we want to do that. How are we going to do that? And so that's where Surge came out of. It's not, and we said, here's what we want to do. We want to do that together. We want to pool our resources together, but each of us take responsibility for our own churches and for developing leaders there. And that's what Surge, we started out with about 4 churches, and about 20 people were in our first intensive that we did. And then it's grown from there over the last 7 years. So we had our orientation, our kickoff, just like this in Phoenix last night, and we had 28 churches represented and over 250 people doing it. And so it was amazing to see how it's grown. And from being here at the first intensive that Kevin and I did last year for Surge, to see it grow this year, another church or two new churches joining in, and then to see many more people here doing it is really exciting to see. One thing that we've just been celebrating and seeing the Lord move in Phoenix over the last few years is a unity among the churches, which unfortunately is often not what you see all the time in different major cities. A lot of times you see churches and pastors be very territorial, and people from different churches that have their own styles and different things not always getting together. And so it's been really a thing of God to see him working in our city and seeing all these churches coming together, and now to be able to see it here as well. And so one thing I want to do before I go on and just tell you a little bit more about what to expect this year is I want us to actually not just to know that there's 5 different churches here in the room, but I actually want you to meet someone you don't already know from a different church. Okay? So I'm going to have you, in just a minute, I'm going to have you stand up. I'm going to give you 1 minute, and you have to meet someone and know their name from at least 3 different churches that are not yours, okay? So if you don't get all the other 4, that's okay, but at least 3 of the other churches, you got to know their name. I'm giving you 90 seconds to do this in, so we stay on time. So you have 90 seconds starting right now.